He was shot in the face, the head, the stomach, the ankle, the leg, the hip, and the ear. He survived 2 separate plane crashes. He tunneled out of a prisoner of war camp, and when a doctor refused to amputate his shattered fingers, he bit them off himself. Most men go to war praying to survive, but this man, after serving in 3 major wars and losing an eye and a hand, he looked back at the carnage and simply said, "Frankly, I enjoyed the war." This is not a movie character. This is the true, terrifying story of Sir Adrian Carton de Wiart, the unkillable soldier who made the Grim Reaper look like a joke. To understand this man's insanity, you have to go back to the beginning. It's 1899. The Boer War breaks out in South Africa. Adrian is technically too young to fight. He's underaged. But he doesn't care. He fakes his name, lies about his age, and runs away from university to join the British Army. He was hungry for action. But the war didn't welcome him with glory. It welcomed him with pain. Early in the fighting, he was shot in the stomach and the groin. In 1899, a gut shot was usually a death sentence. There were no antibiotics, and surgery was primitive. But Adrian didn't die. He just got angry. He was sent home to recover, but the moment the holes in his body closed up, he was back on a ship. He served in South Africa and India for over a decade, treating bullet wounds like minor inconveniences. But this was just the warm-up. The real hell began in 1914. World War I started, and for Adrian, this was like Christmas morning. His first stop was Somaliland, fighting against the Dervish state. During an assault on an enemy fort, Adrian was charging forward when a bullet slammed into his face. It struck his left eye. The pain must have been blinding, literally. But he didn't stop the attack. He kept moving. The medics eventually patched him up, but the eye was gone. Now, most men would take a medical discharge. Losing an eye is a ticket home. But Adrian? He went to a glass eye doctor, got a fake glass eye, and immediately demanded to be sent to the Western Front in Europe, where the fighting was the thickest. He arrived in the muddy trenches of France, wearing a glass eye that irritated him. It was uncomfortable. So, in a moment of pure frustration, he allegedly ripped the glass eye out of his socket, threw it out of a taxi window, and put on a black eye patch. That eye patch would become his signature look. The pirate of the British Army had arrived. In 1915, during the Second Battle of Ypres, the Germans were unleashing hell. Artillery shells were turning the ground into a cratered moonscape. Adrian was on the front lines. During a massive bombardment, his left hand was shattered by shrapnel. It was hanging by threads of skin and muscle. The doctor at the field hospital looked at the mangled hand and hesitated. He said he wanted to try and save 2 of the fingers. Adrian looked at the doctor, then looked at his hand. He knew the fingers were useless. They were just getting in the way. When the doctor refused to cut them off, Adrian reportedly grabbed his own fingers with his teeth and tore them off himself. He then told the doctor to finish the job. He went back to fighting with one hand. But the war wasn't done with him yet. In 1916, at the Battle of the Somme, one of the bloodiest battles in human history, he was shot through the skull and ankle. People started to believe he was immortal. He took command of the 8th Battalion, Gloucestershire Regiment. He was seen walking along the top of the trenches, cane in one hand, walking straight into enemy fire, completely calm, while men were being blown to pieces around him. His presence alone inspired terrifying courage in his men. If the commander with one eye, one hand, and holes in his head isn't ducking, why should they? By the end of World War I, he had been wounded 8 separate times. He had lost body parts, blood, and years of his life, but he survived.
You would think, after the Great War ended, he would retire to a quiet cottage. No, he went to Poland to fight the Bolsheviks. He was involved in a plane crash there, survived it, and was briefly taken prisoner. He didn't know how to live without war.
Fast forward to 1939. World War II begins. Adrian is now in his 60s. He is technically an old man, but when the Nazis invaded Poland, he was there. He escaped the invasion, but his plane was shot down over the Mediterranean Sea near Italian-controlled Libya. The plane crashed into the ocean. Adrian, who was missing a hand and an eye, swam for a mile in cold water to reach the shore. As soon as he crawled onto the beach, he was captured by the Italians. He was sent to a prisoner of war camp in a medieval castle. But a cage couldn't hold him. Despite being 61 years old, he helped dig an escape tunnel. He actually managed to escape and spent 8 days disguised as an Italian peasant, sleeping in fields and hiding from patrols. The only reason he was caught, he didn't speak Italian, and his eyepatch made him the most recognizable man in the country. He was eventually released in a prisoner exchange and sent back to England. Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister, was a huge fan of Adrian. Churchill sent him to China as his personal representative. On his way there, guess what happened? His plane crashed. Again. And once again, he survived. By the time he finally retired, he had lived through more trauma than 10 men combined. He died peacefully in 1963 at the age of 83, not from a bullet, not from a bomb, but from old age. In his memoirs, he wrote a sentence that sums up his entire insane existence. While everyone else described the world wars as the worst events in human history, Adrian wrote, "Governments may think and say as they like, but force cannot be eliminated, and it is the only real and undeniable power. I have told you the truth. Frankly, I enjoyed the war."